Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Braxton Kirsting, and today I will be answering the question, what is SOLIDWORKS Manage? Well, SOLIDWORKS Manage is an incredibly powerful and versatile software tool that provides... I'm just kidding, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but thank you ChatGPT for the wall of text that is actually pretty accurate. But in all seriousness, you might already be familiar with our PDM products at this point, and I mentioned that because SOLIDWORKS Manage is a good way to consider it is a bolt-on to the PDM product. All the same capabilities that we're familiar with or may or may not be familiar with in PDM, we're going to extend with SOLIDWORKS Manage. And in fact, if you purchase a seat of SOLIDWORKS Manage, it comes with a seat of PDM Professional. I think a good way to break down what is a SOLIDWORKS Manage is into really four distinct categories. We have advanced bill of material capabilities. So we'll see how we can expand the capabilities of our computed bill of material from SOLIDWORKS PDM, or maybe you're even using Excel for your bill of materials, and we'll see how SOLIDWORKS Manage can maybe provide some benefits over those other options. We also have access to more advanced process controls. And again, we're extending that PDM functionality with the PDM workflows, and we're going to expand that to more record-based data and still utilize what you may already have in play with your PDM workflows. We can also introduce project management. And so we're going to see we have, full access to Gantt charts and task boards and things like that that are, pretty typical in project management focused tools. And finally, dashboards. We can take all that data and aggregate it into a nice, easy to read page that can be filtered down and be focused on specific areas like our projects, or maybe our workflow status of PDM, or maybe even external databases that aren't PDM or managed at all. So with our advanced bill of material capabilities, like I mentioned, we'll have access directly to those SOLIDWORKS bill of material. So here we see our standard computed bill of material, which is basically just constructed in the same way that we actually model the assembly in, say, SOLIDWORKS. In Manage, we're going to see that exact same data. There's really no extra work that's done here. It's automatically exported, well, not really exported, synchronized with PDM. Changes happen to that model in PDM. We see that same change in Manage. But right off the bat, there are some key differences in the fact that we can include things like BOM-specific fields. So if we want to include things like a serial number range, or maybe like a reference designator if we're talking about an electrical assembly. These are things that maybe aren't the same for every bill of material that particular document is used in. Now, in addition to our CAD data, we may need to include record-based data, consumables, packaging, things that we may or may not have modeled in our assembly. So here, what I'm really trying to create is a shipping bill of material that is regionally based for a tool vise. And so I want to include things like the bubble wrap, the cardboard, maybe some grease that's going to be applied as required. Now, to create the other regional bill of materials, or maybe in some scenarios, I just want to create, a very similar product that, really utilizes 90% of another bill of material. I don't want to have to recreate them. So part of the advanced tool sets that we'll see here is that we can actually copy that data. We can copy from existing records and bring them into brand new bill of materials. So in this case, I'm going to copy from the same record, the US bill of material. I'm going to create that EU bill of material, but as you can see, I can copy from completely separate records, or maybe even older revisions of the same record. So I'm going to take this US BOM, copy it to maybe a European regional BOM, and I can incorporate some key differences, things like changing out the size of the cardboard box or alternating which suppliers I'll use because it's going to be in a different part of the world. Now, we still have really robust tools in order to see what these differences are. We can run comparisons both on different variants, different versions, or again, completely different records if that's the type of data we need to export out to show what the differences are between two different products or two different records. And the really cool thing is we can export this comparison exactly as you see it, including that color coding. So on one sheet, you'll have the BOM on the left, another sheet, you'll have the BOM on the right, and a third sheet with both bill materials together showing the side-by-side comparison. So it makes it really easy to share with people outside your organization, or maybe people inside your organization that just don't have a business case to access manage. So with our advanced bill material capabilities, we tend to see improved collaboration. We can have different disciplines being able to start generating these bill materials and utilize that SOLIDWORKS CAD data without necessarily needing that direct access. We also have improved or enhanced traceability of where things are used, right? We saw those commodity type items, the grease or the packaging. We'll actually be able to see exactly where those are used in any bill material throughout our organization. Now, another core functionality of SOLIDWORKS Manage is going to be the process control. As I mentioned earlier, think of the process control more of as an extension of your PDM workflow. They may or may not interact, but Manage can drive documents through that workflow without any extra configuration. In fact, we can even initiate a process within Manage by moving files through an existing workflow in PDM. So again, this doesn't take an extensive setup time. It is a bolt-on. We just kind of synchronize them together and develop the process flows according to your needs. We can also even limit what can go into a process based on their status or based on what workflow they are in or what workflow state they're in currently in PDM. So if we consider an engineering change request, well, if a file is not in an approved state in PDM, or maybe it's not released yet, it might not make sense to go through an ECR process. Maybe instead you have a new release, or you're just going to reuse the engineering change order process to actually drive that revision increment and drive the new release. Now, we don't just handle the CAD documents. We saw in the bill material example, we can use these record-based information and we can revision control those records. So in this case, I've kind of separated the bill material, the shipping bill material for this toolvise out away from the SOLIDWORKS PDM document, the assembly document, in a way to improve our collaboration. But maybe I need to incorporate a change, increment the revision. I need to make a change to also one of the CAD components of this bill material. Now, instead of having to go find these the CAD data that is used by this bill material, Manage does offer some tools to help us find these related documents. So just by using this add related records, it'll actually give us the entire structure based on the where used or based on the actual bill material structure. And I'll be able to add these directly from here. And here I'm going to add this cap screw. Maybe I need to change the supplier. And I can add it directly within the scope of this process. So now we can see at the completion of our EC, our engineering change process, both the bill material as a record of data and the cap screw as a CAD document will both have the revisions incremented to B. Now, a major part of what we see in a PDM workflow, right, is driving change, driving the increment of the revision, or maybe signing off the approval initials and dates of our files. So we're automating some of those outputs, and we could do the same things with our process flows. In fact, we can say go from an engineering change request process, if approved, and initiate a completely different process, maybe our engineering change order process, right? So once the engineering change request is approved, we automatically initiate the engineering change order process, which ultimately is going to increment the revision. Or we can have it create brand new records based on certain decision points. In one example, we might have a process that kicks off a new product introduction as a project, and it creates that project record that we'll see here in a minute. Or at the completion of an ECO, maybe we want to automate the running of a report to give just a really broad summary of the engineering change order, who made the change, what the cost might be, who was involved at varying stages, maybe what the disposition of the change parts is. And the cool part about that is we can associate it automatically to the process record itself. We can even attach it to a notification that's sent off when the engineering change order is completed. And that's going to keep everyone up to date on what's changing and give a nice report of what actually occurred in that process. So with our process controls, we tend to see improved workflow efficiency. And what I mean by that is we might have different types of data flowing through these workflows that can be routed to different reviewers based on what type of data there are, or ad hoc choose different approvers depending on availability or available resources. And I think the communication is bar none. We can really modify the notification templates, automate those running of reports at the completion of a process, and even include those as attachments in the notifications. I mentioned projects a couple times, and project management is a big part of the capabilities that SOLIDWORKS Manage will bring to the table. Now, when we talk about project management, you're probably automatically thinking about those Gantt charts, right? And we're definitely going to have Gantt charts here. These Gantt charts can come in kind of templatized formats, or you can even import them directly from, say, Microsoft Project from like an XML file. Now, if we maybe don't have a set template, you can create these Gantt charts ad hoc or add stages as needed depending on your needs for a given project. We also have the ability to access multiple projects at the same time to help plan, right? So if we have a gap in our schedule that maybe we can squeeze in a new project, or maybe we can move a project timeline up, it's going to help us stay on track or deliver new projects faster. We also have standard things like network diagrams that give us our slack and helps us understand where we're at in the project or how much time we have to give in a certain stage of the project. And this is all calculated automatically for us based on the stage timeframes and also maybe the tasks that we have built up for each stage. I mentioned tasks, and tasks are definitely a big part of the project management capabilities of Manage. Within those templates, we can build tasks to automatically be assigned to certain resources for specific stages with set allocated time. And we can create new tasks as needed, right? So, and the cool part about that is depending on the time we allocate to these tasks, we can have it automatically recalculate the duration of a given stage. There are multiple different ways to visualize these tasks. We have this, the task list that we just saw. We have task boards that help us kind of visually understand how many tasks are on a different stage and create new tasks ad hoc with these task boards. Or if maybe we prefer a chart or like a burn down table or a list of our tasks. Again, these are automatically going to be calculated based on our templates or based on the tasks that are associated with a given project. So it's very task driven. And I mention that again because not only will it be able to calculate a total duration, but as users start to interact with the tasks and mark them as complete and mark time against them, we can actually calculate the progress of a given stage directly from the completion of those tasks. So it definitely helps build up that data from the ground up from your user level. And tasks go even one step further with timesheets. Depending on your contributions to a project, at the end of the week, if you need to run your timesheets, it will automatically understand which projects you've been contributing to and include the time based on your task completion to your timesheets. And these timesheets even have their own process that go to your own manager. And so they follow a set release process and approval process. So one thing I really like about the projects is they are task-driven, not just because we say you need to do this, but based on the time that you're allocating, based on the time reported it takes to complete them, helps us understand the progress of the project, as well as helps you fill out those timesheets. And it's all data-driven. We're not entering individual text in a spreadsheet. It's also really good visibility because not only are we going to be able to see from our timesheets, but if we were to look at any project, we would actually be able to see the resources involved. We can even break that down to individual schedules to really understand how much of our resources, our resource time management we have to give. And last but not least, SOLIDWORKS Manage will give us the capability of viewing dashboards of this data that we've aggregated through our bill of materials, process controls, projects, or maybe even what you've already have in PDM or an external database. So we get that real-time data visualization. You can set the refresh time, but what we're looking at here is all of our engineering change requests. If I select one of these, I can break it down based on stage name, based on the technical feasibility, or even regionally, based on where we say this product is made or where the effect is actually going to be implemented. I mentioned that filterability. Here we have a project dashboard. And if I want to filter it based on a given project, say the prosumer miter saw, we can see it filters down the given task in that project. We can see Mark Murphy's been pretty busy on this one, but he's completed all his tasks on times, and we know we're on target with this particular project. So the great part about these dashboards is they can be assigned to given users, so we can kind of control the visibility, but it's all going to be live, up to date, and give us that real-time information. And again, we can get that live information for our internal data from PDM, from Manage itself, or we can even query other databases if we want to see things like inventory levels, maybe from your ERP. Really, the capabilities are endless here. So just a quick recap, SOLIDWORKS Manage is advanced bill materials. We have great collaboration by bringing in the ability for other teams to contribute to those bill materials. They're not just driven by engineering. They're not managed by some monstrous Excel sheet. So we see improved efficiency there and better traceability for those items that maybe aren't modeled. We can see where a cardboard box is used in every single bill material across our organization. With the advanced process controls, we expand that capability of our PDM workflow. So we'll have better workflow efficiency because it can handle multiple different scenarios, much more flexible. I think improved and better communication with our notifications. We have the ability to attach those report summaries at the completion of a process and include as an attachment to that notification. So everyone's in the know when it's completed and they have all the relevant information. And if they need to, they can always look at that process record for a more in-depth recap. With the project management capabilities, we've seen it's really task-driven. All the time allocated and time spent on those tasks helps drive the project process or progress, and timesheets also helps us understand how long a certain project may take. And the visibility for anyone involved in that project, it's always going to be easy to see from that planning, from that Gantt chart, where you're at in the process. Or if we take dashboards into consideration, we'll be able to see, are we ahead or behind on our tasks in a given project? And the dashboards provide even further capabilities just by their flexibility to integrate into other external databases. So if I were to summarize what SOLIDWORKS Manage is into a single sentence, I would say that SOLIDWORKS Manage is an advanced data management software that helps organizations track and organize their product development processes in a more streamlined and manageable way. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. It's been really nice having you. Again, if you have any questions, please post those in the questions in the GoToWebinar, or if you'd like to follow up with us, please let us know. We'd be happy to help with any future conversations for SOLIDWORKS Manage.